Well, we have 2 more lightning talks, so yeah, should be a few minutes.
Go ahead.
Actually, we might have another room for the 4th one. Who's
I'm going to grab some chairs. Bring them in through the back. Just quietly.
you need a guard, you need a badge to get to open that.
Okay.
I'm a member of the developer group for probably a little bit over a year.
Could you speak in the microphone? I can't hear you very well.
And can you hear me?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, great. And since about right that time, with a colleague of mine, we decided to start this company. And the reason for that was, as developers, we saw that a lot of the apps that are built have a lot of security vulnerabilities. And we wanted to leverage the security background that we have and help mobile developers be able to test their apps for security vulnerabilities for the fraction of the money that they would pay to big guys for offering that service. And this is how we formed Firebase. And since February, we started offering to developers, manual developers, be able to test their apps and even more importantly, their web services, the services they connect to for security vulnerabilities. So I'm here today to offer to all of you free testing of your mobile apps. The web services that you are and we can do this for
Yeah, that'll work.
all the people here for free for 3 months. So we show and some of you are looking on apps. That's quite fun. So we'll be happy for all of you to offer you to visit. I didn't presentation, but we're thinking about the 15 of the most common security vulnerabilities in the web service, from SQL injection to brute force penetration for Excel and basically issues. Also, a lot of the passwords.
Do you see my screen?
Yeah. Yeah, I just saw you sharing it.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, even though I put the window on another desktop, it's still showing the screen. Okay.
There are flyers
Let me
where you can learn more about why complex sites.
Can you give him the microphone?
Here,
We're broadcasting you.
I always scan QR code and you can get straight to the page. So, what you can do?
Actually, brought the live stream in.
Oh, great. So what you can do is just go on the back, grab one of the sheets, or I will be also here after the event ends. Come and talk to me. I have also my partner here, and we will be happy to answer more questions. And even we can give you free advice if you are stuck with some issue in your development. Especially, I'm talking about on the security side. I will put also sign-up sheet on the back. So if you're interested, feel free to sign up. We'll be happy to help you to do that for free. Thanks.
Hi, hello. My name is Manu. This is my first time at this meetup. I was interested in kind of trying out how to use Firebase to. Oh. Hello. Hello. You won't hear it. Okay. Right. So let's see. Oh, so the,
Someone press this, then I think we want that. You have the video case?
and so that would be, I don't know if I have it right. Is it on this side? That thing? Is that? Yeah. Cool. So I wanted to start like an open source kind of project this week. Kind of test out and see how to use the Firebase software. I mostly had, as far as like JavaScript experience with AngularJS, and I heard that AngularFire, the library they have for AngularJS, was pretty cool. And so I heard about it like last year, but this one, just like the past week, I started learning. And the documentation is pretty cool. It's easy to read. And so I'll just kind of go a quick walkthrough of the app that I have. It's kind of rough right now, but I'm running in 2 different browsers here. In one, I'll log in as a different thing, with a different user for this. So basically, I was able to kind of set up an app on the Firebase, an account for that, and kind of set up for authentication with like Twitter and Facebook. It was pretty simple following the instructions for that. Hopefully, so that they provide with AngularJS like a lot of really cool code that makes it easy to kind of log in with different accounts. And so my app idea is like I have a way you can enter in your a YouTube URL for a YouTube video. So I have kind of hard coded in some random ones here. This is a music video I like. And so I'll just go to the same URL. And so the one on the left is one account behind Mono. That's another Twitter account I have. And the one on the right is, I'm logged in as Manu, a different Twitter account. And so the idea is that, oops, sorry. Okay. So basically, like, you can go to different parts of the, it's like kind of like SoundCloud, where you can kind of add comments at different parts, and kind of like Google Hangouts also. So here you can say, this is cool, here, and here I can say, yeah. So I can click on this and go to where they said that. Okay, sorry. So I'm going off there. Yeah. And so I was working around with the way that the rules is set up for Firebase, so you can actually restrict what people can do. So like this one, I can change the comment I made here, but I can't change it here because of it looks at your authentication that you're using for the request. So I was able to kind of do that, and so I'm thinking, like, I've seen examples on GitHub of how you can kind of check in this data here. Oops. You can kind of check in this data into the GitHub, and so people can see the security restrictions you have on all these different parts here. So that's basically what I have right now. And so I'm kind of learning about the security part mostly, and so it's pretty easy, I think, as far as like compared to like having to hard code itself, like the authentication and all kind of stuff. Because you can just go on the website and enter like a key and secret, and it's pretty much set up. So that's it.
Anyone else?
Hey, how's it going? Sorry. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sound okay? All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Koss, and I've been like kind of a co-organizer of this CDG for a long time, and I just joined Google this year ago. And in the fall, Google acquired a company called Firebase, and I was really interested in what they were doing. So I joined the Firebase team about 3 months ago, and most of the team is in San Francisco, and there's about 30 people working on this product, which is a combination of designers and developers, back-end developers, front-end developers, etc. And the goal of their company was just to enable developers to just make awesome applications. It should be shared already. Is it not? It's not screen sharing? Well, if I'm joined, where's the Hangout? Did I lose? I did that before. Oops. Oh. It's showing now? Okay, thank you. So, and if I say hi here, it still shows it? It's still showing? Okay, good. Yeah, so the point of Firebase is basically for application developers, whether you're for a mobile app or a web developer, iOS, Android, or web, that you can build your application without having to deploy and build your own back-end services. So Firebase is a collection of services that enables client-side developers to not have to do that. And so I'm going to show a little bit about how that works, and then we'll do some live coding, and I'll build an app in front of you, and we'll see how that goes. So initially, the value proposition of Firebase was a real-time back-end database. So what does that mean, real-time? We're all familiar with something like Google Docs, where you can have someone typing in one screen, and then someone else somewhere else, anywhere in the world, they can see you typing at the same time. So this is what we refer to as the real-time scenario. So people like speed; they like to get immediate, feedback, and to be able to synchronize between different applications, between different users in real time. So this is how users experience the real-time experience. And as developers, this is how we experience the real-time experience. It's kind of a complicated infrastructure to set this up. You've got multiple database servers in the back end, and you've got a bunch of connection servers on the front end, managing real-time connections to many users concurrently, and making sure you keep them in sync and things are well ordered, and it's actually fairly complex. So you care about how fast is your infrastructure, the security. You want it to be authenticated, and also the issue of just hosting your application for like web applications is sometimes kind of a pain, especially with SSL needs. So users expect speed, in some cases offline capability, working on multiple platforms, and an easy way to authenticate. So this is basically the scenario that Firebase is targeting. So Firebase's main product today is a NoSQL data store. So if you're familiar with traditional table-based data stores, Firebase is different than probably any other database you have seen. It's even different than other NoSQL data stores in its structure. But a NoSQL data store in general means that you don't really have joins, and you might have something like optimistic concurrency if you have multiple databases and so on, but the database is basically like a key value store where you're setting, you present a key and you say what data you want to store there, and then you can retrieve it again. Most of the NoSQL databases are kind of mapped to that. So this is an example of what you would do for like a RESTful interface that's not real time. You might package up some JSON on your client, and then you would make a REST request, a put request, or so on to save it to the database. And then when you're going to retrieve that, you'd use the same URL, RESTful URL, to go retrieve that. It's not real time. You can poll and you can kind of approximate real time connections, but that's kind of a pain, and it's not very efficient to do it that way. So Firebase, on the other hand, keeps a constant connection open to all of its connected clients, and when they can tell the Firebase backend, where's that little popping guy down here? Oh, iTunes wants to do something. Thanks. They can, since they're connected over a persistent connection, then they can be notified immediately when data is changed, and they can tell the server what data they're interested in knowing about in real time. So schematically, in Firebase, you would have, again, like a RESTful-like URL that represents where your data is stored or retrieved from, except this time you can have multiple devices all connected simultaneously, and anytime someone writes to that location, all the people who are kind of subscribing to that location can be notified by an event. Like I said, the SDKs, we have a web client, an iOS client, and an Android client. And how well can you see that? Can you see that at all? I will have bigger text later on. But the main points of these slides is to show the simplicity of the Firebase API. In the JavaScript client, you create, once you have the Firebase JavaScript in your client, you can create a new Firebase object and you tell it, like, where is your Firebase, what is the URL for your backend Firebase database? And also which part of the database. So you can kind of specify a path. You can think of the Firebase database as a giant JSON blob in the cloud. And you can point to any kind of node in that cloud and write and read data from that. So it's not tables, but it's more like a big JSON thing, except arrays are a little funny. We don't really have arrays per se. Well, JavaScript doesn't really have arrays per se if you really understand JavaScript. Arrays are essentially a map from strings to values in JavaScript, so which is what we have in Firebase as well. Yeah, question?
So have you compared and contrasted with other similar technologies like WebSockets.io or Meteor, which is a little bit more?
Well, we use WebSockets here, like as part of our underlying technology when they're available. So, you know, our client library will try to use the best way of connecting as you can. So the only difference, I mean, if you use Meteor would do a similar thing, and you know, so anyone who can kind of set up real-time connections like that would use similar kind of underlying technology. You know, it just has to be available in the browser or on your mobile platform. Okay. And then once you have one of these references, so we call this a Firebase reference, which is a reference to that little guy bouncing is driving me nuts. Well, how did I? Is he actually running? I don't know. Okay. Once you have a reference to some location in your tree, so like this is just pointing at a top-level node called realtime at the root of my Firebase JSON tree, then it's just setting a string, all the things. So that will modify the database, and I'll show you kind of a sample of that. Then that's writing. So how do you read data out? So unlike most databases where you might do like a fetch request or a get to read the data, in Firebase, because we're inherently real-time, you basically set up to subscribe for events. So you use this on method here. So it says reference.on, and here it says I want to subscribe to a value event. So anytime the value at that location changes or any child node of that location changes, I will get a snapshot back from the database, and it'll call my callback function, and then here it's like just putting it into a text field on the web page. But this is like, this can be called multiple times, over and over again, every time that data changes. So you're structuring your app to be inherently a real-time application responding to events. And this is just showing the simplicity of our Authentication API. We support things like Google sign-in or GitHub sign-in and kind of OAuth tokens, so you can build some of your own custom authentication as well in Firebase. But I'm not going to be talking too much about authentication in today's talk. There are a bunch of libraries, so if people are using Angular or React, Ember, Backbone, we have some other, besides our core client library, we have other libraries that just make it easier to hook into the event processing system of these other frameworks. So you have less kind of glue code to be writing. Okay, so let's go ahead and try building an app in Firebase. So this is our app. This is going to be basically a simple chat app, and the idea in this app is that I'm going to type my name. Let me just refresh, make sure. And you can type a message. And it shows up here. So this isn't using Firebase at all right now. I'm going to show you the code, how this application works. Web page is really simple. You have basically a couple of input fields and a div where I can start to insert messages. And you see that bottom fragment that's when we want to display a message. I'm just going to be inserting these divs at the top of the message history every time you create one. Okay. Everybody see the text okay? Yeah. So I tried not to use like this app doesn't use any frameworks or anything. It's just like raw JavaScript. There's not even jQuery on this page, just to make sure that everybody can understand what's going on. It's really, it's a little more lengthy, I suppose, but it's a really simple application. So when we start up, we just kind of bind to the buttons, and then I have this function called display message that does the glue to create some DOM elements and insert them into the page. If you're using other frameworks, this would be like a one-liner, and you could use templates and things like that. But again, I just wanted to kind of keep this simple. So the first step of like Firebase-izing this. Oh, I should point out the way this works now. When I click that send message button, we are calling down here. The reason it's showing up in the page is because I'm calling display message locally on my client. So it's only showing up on my browser, and it's just going to show up there. And that code's actually going to change when we convert this into a real-time application. So first step is to include the Firebase JavaScript library. And basically it doesn't change the app at all. It's just the same app we had before, except, So now we should have a Firebase, a Firebase object. I can create a new Firebase here. Okay, so that's not that interesting. But the next step is, let's go ahead and create a reference, or create a new reference to my Firebase database. So my Firebase database is called gdgseattle.firebaseio.com, and I'm gonna connect to a reference called messages inside of that. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, the app doesn't really change. I just kind of created a reference that I'm not using. But I have, see, what was that called? Message store. And so now I have the ability to, oh wait, let me show you first. Let's go over to, this is the Firebase admin console. So I have several applications here, separate, Firebase databases, and let's just go into the, one of them here. Actually, I was previously testing this, so I'm going to bring it back to vanilla. So this is a visualization of all the data in my database, which is nothing. So just a null. In Firebase, null is the same as deleted. There's no data there. So let's see if I think I want to go not full screen here. And let me rearrange some windows. Oh, actually, I need this one over here. Okay. I don't think I need that all. Okay, here's my demo. I'm trying to show you like the data store in real time over here. So I have message store set. Hello, GDG. There it is. So what happened there is now I sent a message to the database. I sent some data to the database. And then this dashboard is actually just another Firebase application that's always listening for any changes in the database. So you can see it. I'm able to write a string into that position. Or I can write a number. Oops, except I have to say set. There it is. I just can remove the string and turn it into the number 1. And you can also then, more powerfully, you can enter basically any JSON object, and it knows how to parse that JSON object and return to you the exact same structure that you had before. So now we have this kind of cloud-based JSON object that will mirror, what I have here. Another really handy thing besides set, where you can just kind of set a value, is a function called push. So here I do message store.push hello, and you'll see this kind of gobbledygook key. This is basically like a key value pair. That thing on the left is called a push URL or a push code, and those are basically like timestamps that are encoded as a string. So they sort in chronological order, but they're accurate down to the millisecond level plus some extra randomness. So the idea with this is, suppose you have like 100 clients and they all want to write to the same like list all at once, and you want to avoid them like just choosing the same name because they would overwrite each other. So with this method, they basically kind of invent a unique key, but they all sort in real time, kind of according to the clocks of the clients, so that they all have, millisecond accuracy, but they'll never collide with each other. So you can kind of just start, appending onto a list by having all your clients just push data into one of these references. So that's what we're going to do in our application. Is we're going to use this messages references to be a list of all the messages that people have typed, and we're going to just push a JSON object that has your name and the message you wanted to type. So that's our goal. Let's go back to the code. Oops. Where did I lose it? Oh, I think I hid it behind this window. There we go. Okay. So to do that, pretty easy. Before, remember, we were just displaying a message. And now we are going to do message store push and just create a JSON object right there in line and send it the current user's nickname and the message that they typed. And we'll go ahead and leave this part in for now. So let's try that out. Where'd it go? I lost my page again. So I'm going to refresh this. Type Mike and hello there. And let's go over here and just wipe this out again completely. Again, we're just going to start from scratch. And let's see, I'll set my name, and there we go. So there there's my JSON message there inside of a push key. So, and there's that pesky iTunes thing bouncing around. Options. Go away. Can't believe it. Can't quit it. It's not. I don't know. Apple really wants to talk to me right now. Okay. And if I do another message here, and you know the app is working just the same, except we're just on the side. We happen to be sending data up to the server. So now we have two of these messages. Okay. So now let's try. Again, I lost my text window. Let's go ahead and try to now read from the database. So there, what we have to do is, set up one of those event handlers here for the on message. Okay. So you can listen for different kinds of events on a Firebase reference. One of them is just value, which I think we showed you in the slide. There you will get a copy of everything that's at that reference. But if we had, if we had millions of messages in this list, all million of them would come down to the client, and it wouldn't be very efficient. And also, like, we might not be prepared to kind of like handle all of them at once. If you're listening to a list, though, or a location where you're kind of intending to kind of keep appending to a list, you can listen for this child added event. So child added means, is there some new property, underneath my current reference, like a new key value pair that was added to the database since the last time you told me about the database? And it will send me a snapshot, which is like it's a reference to that data. Internally, like, we use that snapshot as kind of this immutable data type so that you can copy them around and they can be shared, and it's a much more efficient thing. But we don't let you touch the actual JSON values inside that immutable snapshot, because then it wouldn't be immutable anymore, and all those nice properties in our code would not work anymore. So you have to call the val method on the snapshot to actually suck the actual JSON out of it. And then once you have, now I can just use the two properties that I set in there, name and message, to go ahead and display that message. But now, since I'm using Firebase to kind of call me to display a message, I no longer really want to locally do it. I no longer want to display a message, before I send it to Firebase, which is what this other display message is. So I'm going to comment that out. And then let's see how this works. Okay. Okay. And I got a testing 1, 2, 3, and it's actually behaving just the same as it was before, but what's happening is that on method is being called. And further, I'm going to refresh the browser here. So notice that hello there and hello again and testing 1, 2, 3 are all coming back, you know, as I get child added events. So the logic behind this is that when you first connect to a Firebase database, it's as if you don't know anything about what that data is. And so Firebase, if you add a child added event, it will basically replay history, you know, the complete history of that location for you. So it'll tell you about every child that currently exists in that database, in that list right now. And we have different like filtering and query things that, that you can use. Like if I only want to see like the 100 most recent, I can then I can add an event handler to only see the 100 most recent. But when I first connect, I'll get 100. And then every time someone adds a new one will come in real time. Yeah.
Is there a way you not want to see this thing? I'm just starting fresh. I do not want to see a history.
Well, you don't create a handler for the event handler for a reference until you're ready to process events for it.
Can I create a handler on value?
Yes, you can create a handler on value, and you'll get the whole snapshot, like the entire thing.
Okay, I just
or child added with the other.
Added at X1, X2, X3. I just want to see what's coming after my when I add it. Don't want to see this.
Yeah, if you want to see something after a certain point in time, you can filter on like a value in your database that has a timestamp in it, or one of these push IDs are basically encoded timestamps. But you have to, in the kind of like concurrent programming world, we don't have a concept of I've connected to the database and now I'm ready to, and I only want you to show me stuff that happens after I've connected. You have to actually do the query yourself as a timestamp. Yeah, but you can do stuff like that. Question in the back. Again, you can create a query. So you can query. You have to make sure your database has timestamps in the data, and then when you create a reference, you can change the reference to add a filter. Let me go ahead and show you some of the Firebase documentation. So if you go to firebase.com and go to docs, you know, it's something I didn't show you. I just kind of breezed over it here. Oh wait, oh no, maybe it's coming up later. Yeah, here we go. So yeah, this page also has a Firebase app in it. That number of registered developers is a real-time number. So that is changing constantly. So it's 179,332. You can see if any of you sign up for Firebase during the talk, or someone says while we're standing here, we can get that number to change. But let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, looking at the docs. So if you go to docs, you'll see, because we have a web client, iOS client, and an Android client, they're split up into 3 different parts. We'll go ahead and look at the web reference, and if you click on, there's a bunch of like, you know, kind of cookbook and getting started and things like that. I think one of the really nice things about the Firebase team, you know, this is long before I ever got there, but it was very nice documentation. I think that's one thing I think they're really proud of, and I think it's really good generally. So this describes the Firebase object itself, and but a Firebase reference is also a query. So I've been using that Firebase reference as a query object, but you can also make other query objects from references. So like start at. So I can take a Firebase reference and convert it into a query that only starts at a particular value, you know, like a timestamp in my database, and then I use it just like I would an ordinary Firebase reference for doing queries. You can't set things through a query. You need a regular reference to set them, but queries can be used like that. Okay. Yeah, another question? Oh, the question I think is, what kind of data types can you store in a Firebase database? Yeah, so today we support anything that looks like JSON. So it's really strings, numbers, and Booleans. If you put enough Booleans together, you can store anything in the world. I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, images is a very, very frequently requested feature to store images. Some of our developers are using, they base 64 encode a byte stream and they store it in Firebase. Each value in Firebase can be up to 10 megabytes. So you can store images in that, even if they're base 64 encoded. You can store maybe not raw images, but regular JPEGs or PNGs. It's kind of like a blob, but it's a roll your own blob in a way. So we've definitely got lots of feedback about that. We want to address it, but we don't yet have a solution for it. But it's something we're very aware of and we want to work on. Yeah, in the back. Well, the question was, how do you minimize the number of real-time connections? One of the things about Firebase is their pricing model doesn't charge you for real-time connections. So you don't, as a developer, pay for it. But there are some scenarios where you might not want that, and we have like a disconnect method. You can specifically tell the client, disconnect now and don't reconnect until I'm ready to process data again. So you can do that. People also have been using Firebase not only just from clients, but also from server applications. So you can generate authentication tokens for other servers that can connect to your Firebase as kind of a virtual user that you can create. And then those things often want to just disconnect the client and only connect when they're processing batch data. Yeah. Okay. No, the push ID totally comes back to you. The push ID is actually generated on the client. So it's a helper function. You could write your own. It adds enough random bits. So modern browsers have a really good, maybe not cryptographically secure, but very good random number generator. It actually might be cryptographically secure in Chrome. So we use a random number generator to generate those so that there's enough entropy usually on your browser. You're not going to get any collisions. Yeah, push IDs would be fixed, like that kind of a unique identifier. You can modify the data, yeah, because you have access to the key and the value. So you can read once it's created and stored, once you read it back in, you get both the key and the value, and then you can modify the original item. Now, if you have hundreds and hundreds of clients trying to modify one item, now you're back into this situation again of having to deal with concurrency. Yeah, the question is like, when, is it okay to modify data once you've written it? It's really up to the application developer to decide whether those scenarios are. You might want to design your app so that you're keeping a log of mutations that the users are making, so that you always have an auditable series of steps that you can replay, and we can enforce not changing it too. So there's I wasn't really going to talk about it in this talk today because it gets kind of advanced, although you got a preview from our first lightning talk. Is the Firebase Rules system. So just as a quick overview, Firebase Rules lets you define JavaScript expressions that are like, can a user read at this location? Can a user write at this location? And you can just use something that looks very much like JavaScript. It's a subset of JavaScript. It's uploaded to the server, and you can just paste it into this thing here. What this rule is saying is, everybody in the world can read this database, and everyone in the world can write this database, including wipe it out completely. So this is a totally unsecured Firebase. I would definitely not recommend you putting this into production. This is like just for testing, and it's nice to get up and running without having to worry about the security rules. But you can make it arbitrarily complicated, where you can say like users that have a particular role that I look up in one part of my Firebase will be allowed to write this part of the Firebase, and so it's actually pretty sophisticated what you can do with it. Yeah. No, it's not a file-based. It's you know, we're using a server-side database on the back end and a farm of them. So that's in our data center. We have a lot of them. Firebase has had I'm not sure what the second-by-second connection, but we've been handling over 1 million connections, simultaneous connections to lots of Firebases. You know, like there's 140,000 developers that have tried it. There's tens of thousands of very active applications running on it now. But let me hold off on questions for a minute, because then we're going to do something a little fun. I'm going to show you. You know, this app is now done, and we have a little command line tool. Oh, let me go up here. And I'm just going to deploy this Firebase to a web server. So another really nice thing that Firebase does is one of the other services is kind of static hosting. So, and we have a CDNs all over the world that will be able to serve your static assets, and also SSL terminated. So you can create one of these, you know, sign up on a free account and you get an SSL, you know, terminated application endpoint. And then there's, if you buy the very first developer level, which I think is like $49 a month, something like that, you can host it on your own domain as well. So if we go to gdgseattle.firebaseapp.com, we can all play together. Where is my gdg-seattle? Oh, and put /demo. So gdg-seattle firebaseapp.com/demo. And I'm Mike. Hello. Who's here? And that. Somebody hit it. Someone said the weather's awesome. There we go. Hey, Jason. Thank you. Oh, hi. So, so there we go. We just wrote a real-time capable application, and it's, you know, from our base application, you saw I added like 4 lines of code. Not a lot. Okay, more questions. There were a lot of questions. Yeah. It's just JSON format. This is Firebase is really just it's a developer tool meant for developers. The only other UI that we do offer is, you know, you do have this you know, administrative console, and you can use this to like browse data, but it's meant for your developers to use. Oh, there's a little bit of analytics reporting too. Yeah. Let's see. Here we go. So I just created this app today, so we probably don't have a whole lot of data, but it's a little slow. Here we go. I have 8 kilobytes of messages stored. That's great. So there we go. You can see our bandwidth, number of connections. You get concurrent users. 10 people are connected to it right now. Yeah. We have a backup service available that will actually like snapshot your Firebase database for you, and then I think you can copy it to like any number of different cloud backends for just saving your data as well. But other than that, it's up to you about what your retention policy is. You can wipe it, and you can also, there's a service where we can provide you an additional periodic backup service as well. Yeah, and way in the back. Yeah, database migration is interesting because it's a very, you know, different structure, right? So I hope to be doing some more samples and maybe some more talks about like how do you really structure data in Firebase that is a good way, you know, for your application to be structured. Often I think most people will want something like this list thing where you have a schema, you know, a common schema for all the things, but they're just going to be JSON entities, and then that rule system, in addition to conforming to your security rules and what users can write what data, you can also write schema validation rules. So you can protect against incorrectly written clients, and the server on the server side will validate all the schema before actually writing new data into a database. So I don't know if we have any other migration tools per se, but yeah, it's a little bit of an ad hoc thing because the data structures are a little bit different than they appear in other, like even NoSQL databases. Oh wow, okay, you have here. Yes.
So the reference stuff on.
Yeah.
What's the underlying implementation? Like, how do you maintain that real-time polling or?
Yeah, reference.on, what's happening is, like, if your browser has the capability to do a WebSocket, I don't know if you're familiar with WebSockets. They're kind of like TCP sockets in a way, but they're kind of chunked messages. But the main point is you keep a TCP connection alive to the Firebase database, or the client will, and this is all under the covers, behind the scenes. And then that lets the server push data down through that channel and the client to push data up through that channel in packets. So yeah, that's all kind of happening automatically for you.
And the second question is, you had a bunch of query operators.
Yeah.
Are those client-side queries or those SQL?
No, these are server-side queries. Those queries are done on the server. So when you you know, there's no joins. They're basically filters and sort ordering operators. And you can also, that same thing that has rules, you can define indices. So you can say, I've got a long list of messages here. I want them to be all sorted by username. And then you can create a query for that, and that the server will maintain an index for you. So those queries can be done very efficiently. On is like a select star with a filter, yeah, very, very close to that. Okay, yeah. You in the brown coat. Yeah. Am I wearing a brown coat? Oh, writing script on the server side? Yeah, we don't have a way of hosting anything other than these like validation rules right now on the server side. So, but it's, like I said, you can create very easily like these authentication tokens that you can deploy on your own backend server, that if you want to do some sort of batch processing, you can use that server to connect to your Firebase app using that authentication token that would give you, like, you know, root access to the database, and that server would be able to then do anything you want as a backend process. And we have, I think there are libraries for, I know there's definitely a Java library that is usable by server code. And I think there's some people have done. There's also a REST interface as well. So like if you don't want you don't need the real-time connections, there's a REST API that you could just use raw REST API to the server too. Yes.
Where can I go and find information about the
Yeah, the security rules are on the Firebase documentation. Here I'll say either. Just scroll. Here it is. Oh, I just had it. Security and rules. This section has a bunch of stuff on it. Okay, you at the beard.
So I was right my own cat. I kind of need a push. How would I use this?
Okay. So I think the question is, like, if you're writing not an app that is like all your users are on web browsers looking at them all the time, but say you're writing a mobile application and you want to notify your users that, you know, they're not actively looking at that notification, but you want at that app, but you want them to get notification. Yeah, so we currently don't have the model where all the Firebase apps today are like, when they're running, they maintain a connection to the server and you get push notifications through that open socket connection. And again, that's another one of these kind of services that people have been asking for that, you know, we could, you know, implement something on top of Google's cloud messaging, push notifications, or Apple's push notification system, and integrating that in with one of our services just to make them easier for app developers to use. But we haven't done it yet. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you're supposed to stay connected to that message, what's your pricing connection? So it's expensive.
Our connect. I don't think we have a. We have a limit. Oh yes. Oh yeah. Okay. Hold on. I think maybe I misspoke. Sorry. Let's bring up the pricing. There is a limit of number of connections. You're right. Yeah. You're right. You're right. You're right. The well, you should. That's good feedback. I think they do look kind of expensive to me as well. Part of what you also could look at, though, I think, is like the real behavior of your users and whether they are, you know, how big of a user base represents how many concurrent connections. And, you know, there's some multiplier there where you, you know, it looks more expensive than it is, although I wouldn't argue with you that maybe it is too expensive. I mean, there are resources on our server that we are charging for. I think it says if you want to go over this, we definitely have people who have more than this number of concurrent connections, and there are like enterprise. Oh, here we go. There's like the 10,000 connections, concurrent connections, and more. Yeah. But I think that's good feedback. It's something, you know, our pricing structure. This is the pricing pre-acquisition by Google. And pricing is something that's always under review, and so we might be changing this in the future. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the bigger customers have things that are kind of like chat clients, but you know, I'm actually not, you know, as a new developer, you know, I haven't really talked to a lot of our customers today, but you know, we had Twitch TV was using it, but that was kind of for their chat application. So they definitely have a large number of users on our back end, and so there are very big clients, and you know, once you get to a really big size, then there are negotiated rates for pricing on those. Yeah.
Just a quick question. I get a message on the pricing. There is also a free option. It's easy to miss because you see the price.
Yes.
The free one, yeah?
There definitely is free, and it's limited to that number of connections. So 200. Oh wait, that's $49. Where's the free one? Free one. Oh yeah, 50 concurrent connections. But if your users are not using it, you know, if they're using it only 10% of the time, that's 500 users basically you could support with that size. Yeah.
So you have a list of people who are actually using it, and it looks like they're using it as a command and control. So Twitch TV, the actual television is out of the channel.
Oh yeah, but this is not video streaming service. Yeah, this is.
And Citrus is using this to send notification and control status information
Right.
for its GoToMeeting product, and so on. So it seems like they're having a situation where the vast majority of the data is being transmitted in an ordinary connection-oriented stream, turn it on, turn it off mode, whereas the Firebase stuff is being used exclusively for asynchronous commands. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I think these users were valuing most like the ability to maintain easily like this real-time connection when their clients are running. So if you have an active client who's present and they want that user to have an experience where they get immediate feedback, Firebase is a good solution for that. I would say there's another set of customers that are more like like if I were going to a hackathon and I wanted to build something fast, this is really awesome. People love this at hackathons, and it's a great way to get a prototype app running, even if you think later on maybe I'm going to migrate to another backend service or some other way of building things. But it's simple, no fuss, you know, fast and easy to use. So I think we have those two scenarios are kind of in our core that the company's grown under. And then coming to Google, we're wanting to kind of expand the scenarios out and give it more headroom, more scalability, you know, all the things that Google knows that has done really well. Bring the power of Google to kind of the simplicity of Firebase is kind of what we're trying to do right now. Okay, way in the back. Oh yeah, we get that question all the time, that people want to host their own Firebase. And we don't have an answer for that right now. Yeah. Let's see, am I done with the slides? I think I'm pretty close to the slides. Yeah, we did questions. Hey, we got 7 new developers to sign up since I've been talking, so thank you very much. All right, well, I'll be hanging around for a little bit longer, and I want to say my coworker Michael is here in the back of the room. He also knows way more about Firebase than I do, and he was one of the original developers on the product. So thank you very much for your time. Oh, let me remind people now, for the GDG, we would love you to answer a survey. We're looking for feedback as GDG organizers, what kinds of programs you want to have us do, what topics you're most interested in. So we're doing kind of an annual survey where we're asking everybody to give us some feedback on what you'd like the GDG Seattle organization to bring to you. All right, thanks.
Hi.
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question. So I went from